Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Questions and Answers. I'm your host, Amjad Muhammad. I'll be with you for the next 20 odd minutes or so, dealing with your questions, queries, and curiosities. As we said prior to the small interval, this is obviously not going out live, and therefore you won't get a chance to call in with your questions. However, please feel free to email Q&A at iqra.tv, where you can get your questions answered directly when the time permits. And so that's a 24-hour service. You can drop your message in there, inshallah, and as soon as time permits, someone will get back to you with your questions answered. Prior to the interval, we spoke about the evolution theory question that came from our youngster yesterday, asking about where the evolution theory fits in and what is Islam's version of events. How does Islam engage with that? Well, from my conversation, it would be quite clear that you would see that evolution theory was given as an alternative theory to creation. So its purpose was to be an alternative theory to creation, that Allah did not create the earth. Allah did not create humans. Rather, everything happened by chance, by probability, by mutation, by survival of the fittest. And it was the surroundings, the context, the environment that actually changed, or brought about the different creatures we see. So as the environment changed, then the creature changed, and we started to get, animals being, flying animals to walking animals or swimming animals to walking animals to flying animals. And that was only because the surroundings were changing. And that was the view that was given forward. Obviously, the Islamic view is quite clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that He created Adam alayhi salam, and from Adam alayhi salam, Hawa alayhi salam was created. So that is quite clear of how a female was created from the male. And there's nothing dubious or doubtful about that. One other issue that we have with regards to the buying into the evolution theory is that we see, and this was what happened in the 19th century, is it justified the white European to say that black people were actually less developed, less evolved than white people. And this allowed them, or this was the science behind the carrying on of differences, the apartheid between blacks and whites, where blacks were looked down upon, where they could not go to the same parks as whites, they could not sit on the same part of the bus as whites, they could not drink from the same. It was so many differences that were made. And as a result of that, because of this scientific, supposedly, understanding that, white people had evolved far better than black people had evolved. So clearly we can see that there's no place for this in Islam at all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, He creates in the best of ways, in the best of formats, and that is how He does things. And that's the way He's always done things. It is us lot now trying to move away from the divine creation of Allah, coming up with alternative theories and alternative solutions. Okay, so let's see if we've got any questions that have appeared on our various Dar Iftars. Okay, so let's get to this one. A friend of mine has a question. She says she suffers from continual blood discharge due to work restrictions. She is not given enough time to do wudu for every salah. She only has just enough time to pray. She wants to know, can she do wudu towards the end of one salah period, intending it for the next salah period? From the description that's given here, it seems that, wudu does not take that long. If wudu is done quickly, it can literally take a minute or two, because if the sister wears leather hoofs, then she does not need to wash her feet. And if she wears, for example, sandals or something, she doesn't even take her feet out of the sandals because she can just rub her wet hand over her sandal, which with a hoof inside, and a sufficient amount of the hoof will be wiped. So really all it's a case of is the face, the hair is massa, or the head is massa anyway, and the arms. And she only needs to wash her face once and the arms once. How long does that take? It takes literally seconds to do. Okay, literally seconds to do, and she will be done. And she needs to explain to her employer, we live in the 21st century, in which she has to say, look, I have a medical condition, which means that I have to perform ablution for every prayer, and that requires me for a couple of minutes to disappear and make ablution and pray. I cannot see how an employer will say, sorry, you can't do that. Okay, I just cannot see it happening in present day and age. And if it is happening, then obviously she's got every right to speak to a union rep, or to even go directly to whoever she needs to speak to and tell them and say, look, this is not right what's going on here. I need somebody dealing with this issue because I feel that I'm not allowed to, practice a couple of minutes to be able to practice my religion as it seems correct. So I just don't think there's that really warrants potentially what's being asked for. Okay, this is a bit of a long, but I have to give a backstory. My daughter goes to karate, and separate to that, they have a charity called Action Break Silence, who go into schools to speak about educating, engaging, and empowering communities to end violence against women and girls. They have a teacher who works for them who is Muslim, and apparently he mentioned women and men are not equal. I was approached by the founder, who is non-Muslim, and she has told me about what has happened. Apparently, some of the other members of staff want him out, but she genuinely wants to understand his point of view, as they pride themselves against young racism and discrimination. He is young, 21, so I can imagine he's very passionate about his deen, and so he should be. But sometimes our delivery can be misunderstood by others, especially by non-Muslim, who don't have full understanding or knowledge about our religion. Can you help in answering the question, are men and women equal in Islam? The more details, the better, as she has given me her number and email in order to gain a better understanding of the brother, I guess. I didn't say much, to be honest, because in some ways I can see why the brother would say that. However, I understand that women in Islam have a high status, so I did say that it's better to get what we call a sheikh or a person of knowledge to answer your question in full. Can you help, Mufti? If you need my email, then I can forward that personally, or maybe even forward the founder's email so the advice can be given directly. I feel as an ummah we are misunderstood and misrepresented in so many areas, so I do feel somebody of knowledge and understanding is needed in regards to this matter. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, it was a long question, but a very relevant question. In short, are men and women considered equal by Allah? The short answer is yes, of course. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not discriminate against a person due to their sex, that if a person is male, that he discriminates against them, or because a person is female, he discriminates against them. However, what we need to do is understand that in the bigger scheme of things. What I mean by the bigger scheme of things is, what do we mean by discriminating? See, this is another whole the topic about definitions. When it comes to a man or a woman who performs a good deed, then Allah will not discriminate against that person because they are male or female. And remember that this is very important. For Muslims, everything we do is about the hereafter. Okay? All the actions we do in this world are always in context or in relation to the hereafter. We are encouraged to marry. Why? Because of the hereafter. We are encouraged to eat halal food. Why? Because of the hereafter. We are encouraged to dress in a certain way, to behave in a certain way, to raise our children in a certain way. Everything that we are instructed to do, literally from the moment we're born, where the adhan is recited in our ear, and the circumcision is carried out, or the hair is for the male child, or the hair is removed and weighed and given as sadaqah, to giving aqiqah, to all the practices that we do as Muslims, it is all in preparation for the hereafter. So in that scheme of things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not differentiate against a being based on their gender. Now, this is where the difference comes in. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give the same responsibilities to a male as He gives to a female. This is what's important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give the same responsibilities to a male as He gives the responsibilities to a female. For instance, a husband is responsible for the caretaking of the wife, meaning the wife is not required to work or earn for herself. She does not need to provide for herself. It is her husband's responsibility to provide for her. And what we mean by provide for her is provide a house for her, provide clothing for her, and provide food for her. It is the father's responsibility to provide for his children. It is not the mother's responsibility to provide for the children. Even though they are both parents, equal parents, it is the father's responsibility to make sure that his children are fed, that his children are looked after, that his children receive an education, that his children have a roof over their heads. So you can see that there is discrimination from the worldly perspective there. If somebody looked at it in that way, they would say, well, it's unfair because the man is required to provide for the woman, but the woman is not required to prepare for the man. So that's unfair, okay? The father is required to take care of the children and provide for the children, but the mother is not required to provide for the children. That's unfair, okay? But then on the other hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives extra rights to the man in order to partake these, in order to do these responsibilities. So for instance, because the husband is required to provide for his wife and his children, when there is inheritance, he will receive twice as much inheritance as the lady will receive. So I gave you an example that if a man dies and he leaves behind a son and a daughter, and let's just say the son receives 10,000, then the daughter will receive 5,000. Now people might say, oh, she's being discriminated against because she's receiving only half as much as her brother is receiving, only based upon the fact that she's a woman. But take into consideration the paragraph that I gave earlier, whereas now, let's just say they both have a partner, a husband or a wife, and they have 3 children. Now, the female, the daughter, she does not need to share her 5,000 with her husband or her 3 children, so she keeps 5,000. But her brother, who's got 10,000, he now needs to share it with his wife and his 3 children, so he only ends up with 2,000. So in that way, you start to see that there is clear gender roles, gender-specific roles within the Islamic family structure. We don't see as such now many gender roles left within British society. It did exist. You know, those who were in their 30s and 40s will remember their grandparents had a pretty much a gender roles, maybe not their parents. And we're starting to see that change within European Western society. But Islamic society is still based on traditional structures, traditional family structures, where there is a man, there is a woman, and there are children. And this is why obviously there is the same issues then which come up of same gender relationships, because Islam only recognizes a marriage between a male and a female. It does not recognize a marriage between a male and a male and a female and a female, because marriage is a religious act. It is not a non-religious act, and a religious act has to be religiously sound. So I think the way the young man is trying to explain is he's talking about these differences, okay, and not about the equality. Let us be absolutely crystal clear. Everybody is equal in the eyes of Allah. No doubt about it, 100%. It does not matter on the person's sex. It does not matter on the person's color. It does not matter on the person's nationality. It does matter 100% on the person's beliefs. Yes. Does the person believe in God? Does the person not believe in God? How can anybody expect heaven from God if they don't believe in God? It just seems such a ridiculous statement. Surely only those who believe in God should expect heaven from God. So that is the explanation I can give you in a short voice note. If you go to the Olive Foundation's YouTube channel, you will find I have done 3 or 4 videos on gender issues or gender roles in Islam, things of that nature, human identity, navigating human identity in the 21st century, Muslim identity. If you search for videos of this nature in the Olive Foundation, you may also find them on this Markaz al-Ifta wal-Qada group as well. Then you can listen to them and be able to understand even more so that before you approach these people, before you approach these individuals, you have that information gathered, and that information then, once you have it gathered, you can make notes from it, and then you can return. If you still have more questions after, rather than going back and giving it in bits and pieces, gather all this, the videos that I've talked to you about, this voice note, make some notes. If you want some clarity, get back to me, and then inshallah you can go and present this in language that suits, because I don't know this person. I don't know how you can approach this person, because we also, when we're delivering a message, we have to look at the person's mindset that we're talking to, where they come from, because sometimes we have to take a person on a journey. Okay, we can't just boom drop something on them. We have to slowly move them along in a certain way before they can kind of accept what you're sharing with them, because some people come from certain backgrounds to which ideas like this may seem so alien, and therefore their natural reaction is going to be to reject it. So I hope that helps, inshallah. Next question. Assalamu alaikum, Saab. Can you assist? Someone had come on their period. They're going to Jeddah later today from Turkey. She hasn't made any intention for Umrah yet. Does she need to make intention of going to Ihram? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a little bit after the event. As I mentioned before, if you have emergency questions, then you need to ring 01274 214 If you have emergency questions, it's 01274 214 If you post them on this group, then it does take some time for me to get round to them. She should not make intention when she travels, and then make intention for Ihram later. Depends where she's going, as I understand it. But from what you've said, that would be the best solution for her. Next question. Will we be able to get this question? It's a long one, but yes, let's go for it, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. It's urgent. Can you please answer my question? Please, may Allah reward you. At university, by mistake, just 1 minute before the deadline of submission, I chose a title by its code, title ID. It was by mistake. I wasn't even aware of the title name. When after the deadline I checked, I saw it was to develop some stuffs for a e-banking system. The aim of the project is to develop an accurate and robust multimodal biometric identification, authentication, as well as recognition systems based on fusion of face, fingerprint, and speech voice modalities. The feature extraction for face, fingerprint, and speech voice can be carried out by exploiting deep convolutional neural networks. The fusion process may involve combining the extracted relevant features from the different modalities at score level. Evaluate results in terms of identification and recognition, accuracy, as well as in the terms of the false acceptance, Unfortunately, they will not allow me to change the title. If no taklif, jazakallah khairan, that's the problem definition. The internet has become more... Right, subhanallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As I mentioned previously, if you have urgent questions, please do not post them on here. You need to ring 01274 214 during office hours, and you will get a response. No, you will not be considered as being sinful. Last minute or so let's see where we are, and I think we can get one more question in. Is that a yes or a no? We've got a minute, so let's get one more question in, and then we are done for today. Assalamu alaikum. I pray all is well. Could you recommend a tafsir book for someone to read by themselves at home? Yeah, tafsir books. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't tend to recommend tafsir books, but Ma'arif al-Quran is a useful one. Because it's very well explained, so that is something. I think it's available in the English language as well as it is in the Urdu language, so that would probably be the one that I would recommend for you. I think any tafsir that a person does, or studies rather, it should be done with a teacher. because even when you do a tafsir, it can be confusing. No tafsir is so detailed that it can you remove the need for a teacher. Any religious text requires a teacher, 100%. If that wasn't the case, the Quran would have just been revealed as it is without the need of a Nabi or a Rasul. The Nabi and the Rasul come to explain the book. So similarly, with tafsir, you will require a teacher to explain it to you. You can then go over it in your own time as long as you have access to a teacher. Very important, because that will be what will help you develop. So, alhamdulillah, that gets us to the end of today's session. Jazakumullah khairan for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all again on our next live session, inshallah, which is not too far away. Other than that, what it remains is for me to bid you farewell, pass you my salams, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.